Here is a testimonial for the highest paid part-time job in the world from Katrina Alexander.
So I'm approaching 3 years in this academy. All of my accounts have increased trading, investments, business, and personal accounts. This academy can produce results in all areas of your life when you do the work. Yes, you have to work on your psychology and mindset to get the results.
What's going on, everybody? This is David W. Williams, also known as a retail trader. And so what we're going to talk about today is your identity determines your economic situation. So what I want you to take away from this particular video that you're getting ready to watch, you're getting ready to engage in, is to understand that your identity, how you see yourself, really, truly how you see yourself in real life. So once you get away from everybody, once all the lights, cameras, action goes away, once you're by yourself, really how you actually see yourself, right, is really going to determine your economic situation over time, right? So I don't mean that you may be going through something. I don't mean that, you may have some pitfalls. I mean, over an extended period of time, your actual identity is going to determine your economic situation. So that's something that we're going to talk about. So the takeaway that you want to get from this particular video is the fact that your identity will determine your economic situation. And then now it just turns into what you're going to do about it, or if you're not going to do anything about it. But even if you don't do anything about it, that will illustrate that your identity is determining your economic situation, right? So there's really no way to get away from this. It's just either you say, hey, I'm going to do something about it, or I'm not going to do something about it. And that's pretty much what we're going to talk about, right? So this video is going to be for the people that want to do something about it, because the people that don't want to do anything about it, you know what they're going to do? They're not going to do anything because that's their identity. Okay, that's just the reality of the situation. And what people do is they spend a lot of time looking at other people, and that's part of their identity, is never looking at themselves. There's always everybody else is in the bag, or everybody else is doing bad, but it's never them. But we got a lot of economic data to really show that a lot of people are not doing as well as they try to present themselves on the internet. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. So if you don't, you pretty much ain't got to watch the video now, because you know what the takeaways are. So if you're not here for one thing, then don't worry about it. Go enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. So what I really want to do real quick is show you the sponsor of the show. It's going to be the trumptrade.net, right? Research report, $100. Want to really encourage you to get access to it before we go ahead and move the price up. I know for a fact there's at least one stock here that's going to be a multiple of what you're paying for this particular research report. And also, if you're tapped into what we're doing here, we're going to put out more content like this over time. So I want to encourage you, get that Trump Trade. This is the cost of breakfast in the metro. Cost of breakfast of two people in the metro is around $100. So maybe I should raise the price, because maybe it's creating disbelief of the value of the particular content. But while we still got the price at $100, want to really encourage y'all to get tapped into that. And then let's go ahead and get back to the content, right? So what we're talking about is the fact that your identity often will determine your economic situation, right? So let me tell you a really quick story, because the reason why I'm late is because I was talking to a family member on the phone. And the reason why I took the call is because they're family, and the video could wait till I get off of family, right? It's not like this is a 9-to-5 job. And it's not like this person calls me on a regular basis. And it's not like they're always doing this thing. They just kind of randomly called me. So I knew it had to be important for them to just call me out of the blue, right? So talking to this family member, and we were talking about how you can get pre-approved to get a pre-approval level based on your income over the past X amount of years, based on your credit score at a certain number. Okay. And you got to kind of determine if that number makes sense for what you're trying to do in the home market. And what I've explained to this family member is I got approved at a certain number, but I'm not looking to buy at that number, right? I'm looking to buy well under that number. And I kind of explained all the reasons why I'm looking to do that. And then I explained to my family member, I got here by being a good steward of money, right? So it won't make sense for me to no longer be a good steward of money because a person that works in the financial space says, hey, we'll qualify you at this number. It doesn't mean now that I become a bad steward of money. It doesn't mean that I throw all that work out of the window and start doing something else. So because my identity is that I am a good steward of money, right? I don't stop becoming a good steward of money because somebody at a bank says that I will finance you at a certain number, right? So again, your identity is really, really important because it often can determine the decisions that you make. And it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be perfect. Don't mean that you're not going to do things wrong, but often the decisions that you're making are really based on your identity. The things that you are not doing are really based on your identity. So sometimes if you really want to change your life, you got to look at changing your identity, right? And so this is where I think a lot of people, I would say, drop the ball because they won't deal with themselves. They want to deal with everything else. There's a really, really big space on YouTube to ask, how come this other person did something? And that often that's not going to be the solution to your problem. But that's actually if you're actually looking for a solution to the problem. So it's always the other person. There's a massive space on YouTube to worry about why the other person did something, but it's never worrying about why you did something. Because it's never you, right? So most people don't really believe that it's them and their identity is one of the things that they can really work on to really start solving their problems. They're looking to try to figure out, well, how come this other person did A, B, C, D, E, F, G? Because again, it's never their fault. They're never accountable for their behavior. It's always the other person. So let me show you something real quick because I want to show you this illustration of identity and how it can be really, really important. So let me show you this video clip that's going to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. And so heads up, this is me about 10 years ago. Okay, hopefully the audio comes through. And so that's what you need to start thinking about your business. How I can create something that's so powerful that everybody else in my category is going to have to start doing something different. Target, expect more, pay less. Target's competing with Walmart, that's a number one competitor. You can expect more than what you're getting at Walmart, but you're still going to pay less money. Walmart, always low prices, always. You know, Walmart is the low price leader. Walmart's a big warehouse. They always got low prices. They got 3 cashiers. But you know that you're always going to have more. You know what I'm saying? Energize. You keep going and going and going. So Energize started this promotion back, like I said, in the late 80s, early 90s, when all electronic devices were powered by these big alkaline batteries. So the biggest issue as a consumer of these devices is the batteries kept running out. So Energize became the promotion of a little bunny going across the screen by saying that our batteries last longer because they keep going and going and going and going. And they had a lot of traction with that. Apple, think different. So Apple understood that there's a consumer that wants to buy computers that will pay a premium price for computers that are different than everybody else's. And so when you buy an Apple hardware device, especially the laptops or the desktop, the actual design is different, the OS is different. They're not anything like PCs. There's an Apple on the stand over there. I have an Apple iPad at home. When I unboxed it, I was amazed that they created a computer with the hard drive inside the actual monitor. Because all the PCs at that time, the hard drive was in the tower. So when they say we think different, it shows inside the actual hardware they create. So now if you want to compete with Apple, you can't compete with them on the same designs they're doing because then you look like a counterfeit. So then you have to try to figure out how can I come from another direction. Okay, so to give you some context of what that is that about a decade ago, I was part of this particular presentation where there's a place in Atlanta called Ponce City Market. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's a kind of like more area of Atlanta that's kind of really kind of more in the upswing, close to, I think, 5 Points, right? And so I was invited to speak at this particular presentation, and what I talked about was value proposition and USP. And the reason why I talked about value proposition and USP, because I was working as a media buyer. And what I realized is that as working as a media buyer, a lot of the small businesses I work with, I would end up being a marketing consultant for them. And working with a lot of BOBs as a media buyer, I realized that a lot of them really didn't understand the fundamentals of marketing. So a lot of this is why I teach the same thing pretty much over and over and over and over and over again on the Patreon, is because a lot of people that want to be in business or got a small business, they don't really understand the fundamentals of marketing. So in the Patreon, I'm just teaching these particular basic principles. So value proposition and USP. If you look across the room, that's Huff across the room. Also the sister that organized the event. Now this is 10 years ago, right? This was about 10 years ago, 10 years ago, 2015, 2016. So what I want you to understand is that I had to change my identity to be in a position to be doing what I was currently doing 10 years ago. Because I come from a background to where we had insulated ourselves so much to try to protect ourselves from other people to where we didn't talk to people, right? So for me to go in front of people that I didn't really know right, and start speaking to them, right, it took a change of my identity, because historically, if I didn't know you, I would not talk to you, right? There would be no conversation because I don't know you. So who are you? Okay. Another thing, I realized that I needed to get better at public speaking. So what I did before this is I took Toastmasters and I worked on my public speaking. So I took time out of my day, didn't go on YouTube. I went to Toastmasters physically, right? Relatively inexpensive program. Took time out of my day to go to the actual meetings, did the curriculum, worked my way through the curriculum, and learned how to speak in front of people, to where now it doesn't matter if you put 1,000 people in front of me. If I know my material, I don't have an issue of getting nervous. And for a lot of people, their biggest challenge, or one of their biggest fears, is public speaking. It's not an issue for me, right? Because Toastmasters taught me a process. So you see now, this is 10 years ago. Everybody that went to my first 2 events, you see now why I was so comfortable, especially people that went to the first event. I was so comfortable speaking for pretty much 8 hours straight. It was just a mind thing to me. I just had to get through it, because why? I already created a process to me to do it. And my identity had changed to where I was comfortable speaking in front of a bunch of people that I didn't know, right? So I didn't know hardly anybody at that event in real life, and they all came to the event, and I was more worried about what was going on at the event, as I wasn't nervous about speaking in front of them, because why? I had already changed my identity. So I want you to really understand is that I think a lot of you, just because you see me on YouTube, you kind of think I just popped up on YouTube without really realizing that I changed my identity before most of you ever saw me on YouTube, right? Because I was already doing things in real life off the internet, and then I moved to the internet. A lot of y'all are just used to the internet, and that's your world because that's your identity. So you just think everybody's like the people I deal with, where everything's just on the internet. But this is from an older YouTube channel that I took down because I felt like it was a distraction. And I had recorded all of this. And so this is why me and somebody got into a little bit of a disagreement, because I had to explain to them, before I ever met you, I was teaching people. I was teaching people before I ever came in contact with you. So you telling me I can't teach people, to me is foolishness, because I was teaching people before I ever met you. I was standing in front of people and teaching. And we did this. We didn't charge for this. We were just showing love at this time. So I went all over the city and taught before I ever charged anybody $1 for anything I had to do from a curriculum standpoint, right? I went all over the city and taught people for free before I ever created a course. So this is why I don't play with a lot of people. It's nothing to play about, because I really did this in real life. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? So what I want you to understand is that I had to change my identity to put me in a position to do this, to then put me in position to do something later. If I would have stayed the same person, my attitude would be, if I don't know you, I'm not going to talk to you, right? If you come at me halfway weird, I'm not going to talk to you ever again. If, me and you have an issue, I'm not going to talk to you ever again. I had to change my identity to put me in a position to be a better servant of other people, to be able to serve other people. I had to change my identity, because my identity wasn't I'm a servant of people I didn't know. Everything was about just the people I knew. So I messed with about 4 or 5 people. That's the only people I really dealt with. I didn't know any of these people at the event except the person on the far right of me. That's the only person I knew. So I'm teaching people that I don't know. It's a Q&A after this. I did Q&A with people I never met before in my life. That was a big jump from who I was 10 years before, because I never would have spoke to these people. In a million years, it'd be nothing for us to talk about, because you're not from where I'm from. You don't stand on what I stand on. So we don't need to have a conversation about nothing. Those are the rules that I played, because that was my identity at that time. So what I want you to understand is that this is about like 2016, 2010 to 2020 was a big decade of change for me. I changed a lot about my identity and who I was as a person in that decade, right? Because I realized who I was not effective. It wasn't working for me. So it didn't make sense for me to double down. It didn't make sense for me to blame other people. It didn't make sense for me to seek out online content about what's wrong with everybody else and stop looking at myself. I realized that I need to really start working on myself, and how can I change parts of me to start getting what I want to get out of this situation. Okay. And again, I didn't start on the internet. I started in real life and moved to the internet. right? But for many people, they reference point, because there's so much internet content now, is people that made they start on the internet. No disrespect to those people. That's just not my story, right? My story is doing stuff in real life, dealing with real life situations, and then moving on to the internet, right? But always still having the real life situation in the bag. And people have seen that in real life, that I can speak in real life the same way I'm talking to you on this internet. To me, really, real life is easier, right? Because I ain't got to worry about cameras and lights or none of this stuff in the internet. I ain't got to worry about none. I just got to talk. So to me, real life is really easier. It's organization of it. I didn't have to organize this. The sister organized it. I just had to show up. Okay. Here's something else. If I had the same identity in 2020 that I had in 05, I would not be here today, right? And sorry for the typo, in 2025 in this position. See? So me being able to put myself in a bunch of people I don't know, risking them people, not liking the content, risking them people not being receptive to the situation, right? I had to change that, right, to get to where I'm currently at right now today. But here's what I like about talking in public. When you're on the internet, it's a free-for-all. Anybody can show up. And we start to realize that a lot of people really don't know how to add value to a situation. Like, I know people just come on my channel just to contradict me. When you're speaking in person, people had to drive to this event. We had a lot of Georgia Tech students at this event for some reason. I don't know why, but a lot of Georgia Tech students was there. A lot of Indians was there. If you can't see past this first row, a lot of Indians was like in the back, right? Well, if you got to get in your car, drive to an event, you're not going there really to like get yourself involved in foolishness. So a lot of times at public events, there's a higher quality crowd, because you got to pay to park at the ponds unless you park way off and walk in. So there's a fee attached to it. Right? You got to drive to get to it. It's different than I'm just bored on the internet. Let me come into this person's chat room and just say something crazy, and then I pop out or try to create an argument. It's a different crowd. So that's one thing I do like about doing things in person. You drive a different crowd than sometimes what you do on the internet, especially if you're actually trying to teach people and instruct about something. Right? But me willing to put myself out in front of a lot of people was changing my identity, because for years, my identity was, I got to be a ghost. I don't want nobody to see me. That was my identity, right? I got to blend in to everybody so I don't stand out. That was my identity. So now that I'm standing out and put myself out in front of people, that's a change in my identity. But for me to get to where I wanted to go, and for me to get certain type of rewards, I had to change my identity, and I have to keep doing it. It's a lot of things I still got to work on for me to kind of get to where I want to go. And it's not about me. It's me putting myself in a position where I can help more people. Because if I just would have stayed hidden and blended into everybody, right, I never could have helped more people. Okay. And so because I actually have an ability to do certain things, I have to do things to support that ability, or else I can't help the people I'm trying to help. So I want you to understand is that my identity has changed over time. And again, it wasn't about me going on the internet and me trying to figure out what's wrong with somebody else. I had no desire to do that, because I realized I had the talent, I had the ability. What was holding me back was myself. And once I accepted that, then everything started to change for me. As long as I was looking for somebody else and blaming what's happened in the past with me and this person, they didn't do what I wanted them to do, or this person didn't perform the way I wanted, I couldn't worry about none of that. And that's what a lot of people are caught in. And then they try to get you caught in it too. That's very unfortunate, because they're going to look up in 10 years, they're going to be in that same place if they don't change their life. Right? Everything's not going to go the way you want it to go. Everybody's not going to do what you wanted to do. The question is, what is your identity, and how can you change that to improve your economic and your life situation? But if I don't want to deal with that, then I just stay on this hamster wheel of everybody else. And I try to use all these other situations to represent my situation, even though they don't have nothing to do with me. Let's keep going, right? So the question you want to ask yourself is, who are you? Right? Do you know who you are? Right? Do you really know who you are? Okay. And so I think a lot of people are challenged based on their identity, because for a lot of people, every 6 months, they're a new person. Right? Every 6 months, they somebody different. Right? Every 6 months, this thing is the most important thing to them. So they don't really know who they are. So it's going to be very difficult for them to change their identity because they don't know who they are from the gate. So I think really sitting down and really figuring out and doing some introspection on who you are is going to put you in a position to where you can now start to really look at your identity. But a lot of people really don't know who they are. Okay. I did a video a year ago now, and I asked people, where does your culture come from? And nobody could answer. But these same people are blaming culture for what they don't like. Well, where does the culture that you're blaming come from? Nobody could answer. Right? A lot of people really don't know who they are. They really don't. Right? They let the internet tell them who they are. They let rappers and entertainers tell them who they are, but who they really are, they have no idea. So they can't change their identity because they don't know. They're waiting for an entertainer to change who they are for them to change their identity. They can't change their own identity because they don't know who they are. Because if you ask them who they really are, they can't tell you. But we're talking to grown people. Now, they got an opinion on everything else. They got contradictions of everything else. But you ask them, who are you? I don't know. So then you can't change anything if you don't know who you are. So it's easier just to do a whole bunch of other stuff and just really sitting down and really doing some introspection and really looking inside yourself and really determining who you are. You don't have to put a tag name on it. You just got to figure out who you are. Right? You don't have to put the hottest little trendy name on it. Just figure out who you are. Who are you? Okay. Next thing is who you are working for you. Okay. There's a lot of people that are upset about everything. Right? Well, when I was upset about stuff, once I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, I said, I need to change my life. Because me just being mad all the time not helping me. It's just going to give me a stroke. So a lot of people are mad about everything. Somebody came into my comments yesterday, right? Upset about something, right? Somebody commented on the 2 Chainz picture. You'd be surprised how many people out here just mad, or either they just trolling or either they bot farming. You never know. That's, again, why I like stuff in person, because you're not going to get that in person, right? But a lot of people, the question you want to ask yourself is who you are, who you think you are, or, the celebrity that you're trying to imitate, is that working for you? Because if it is, how come you're not happy? How come you mad every day? How come you mad about everything? How come you so easily triggered about stuff? If who you believe you are is working for you. So is that what you call working for you? Is that these things happen and I'm just mad all day? And I'm just upset. I can't find no serenity about life. I can't find no peace about life. I'm always mad. I'm jumping from this situation to this situation. I'm always chasing the hottest, latest thing. So it's who you are working for you. For most people, until they become very, very honest with this answer, nothing about their life gonna change. They just gonna hamster wheel to the day they die, right? But they gonna feel cool because they're gonna be around a bunch of other people on that same hamster wheel. Next thing, right? Decide who you want to be. Right? Figure out, who do I want to be? Who do I want to make myself into? Right? Don't mean you can make the NBA. Right? Not saying that. Right? Don't mean that you can win the French Open. But as a person, who do you want to be? Right? And decide that. And you can decide that today. But first, you got to figure out who you are. Okay? And so this is the work that a lot of people are distracted from and they don't want to do, because this means you got to look at yourself and you got to take other people out of it. Right? And so that's really what it's about, is you got to look at yourself and got to take other people out of it. The work is between, right, how you are, who you are. Let me get rid of this real quick. The work is between who you are and deciding who you want to be. Okay? So all the work that you need to do is in between the space of who you are currently and deciding who you want to be. That's what most people don't want to do. Right? So it's easier just to blame other people for you not having a life that you want, because the real work is who you are and who you want to be. That's the work you got to do. And you can't tagline it. You can't catchphrase it. You can't use the hot new word of the time to get through it. It's work that you got to put in. Right? So me changing my attitude about stuff, me changing my dress code about things, right? Me being more outgoing, right? Me being more of a communicator, You're talking to somebody, like I said, if I didn't know you, I would not talk to you. Right? That's just the environment that I come from. That we would have no conversation. Unless somebody I knew told me to talk to you, we wouldn't talk about nothing. Right? So I can't build what I'm trying to build and help people the way I'm trying to help people if I don't talk to people. Because I realize that when you don't talk to people, they take it a certain way. And I get that. Right? But I had to start really looking at myself and my behavior and saying, well, am I defeating myself with some of the things that I'm doing? Right? Am I sabotaging the work that I'm doing? Am I enemy to my own message with some of the things that I'm doing? And really work on myself, right? Work on my associations, the people that I'm associated with. Work on, the things that I'm involved in. Work on my networking and my extracurricular stuff. I had to work on that type of stuff. How can I develop myself to be more effective in what I'm doing? That's the work I got to do, right? Because I know what's going on. I know how I can be more effective. I know what I'm very, very passionate about. So that's what I have to do. So I learned from By the Hood. I also learned from Erica to not get caught up in a lot of stuff on the internet, right? Because who I used to be, if you played with me, we were just going to get into it, right? And it, whatever is whatever. I didn't care, right? But I learned from those people, you don't need to get involved in that. Don't even entertain it. Just keep doing the work that you're doing. Especially By the Hood really got me to understand that. Erica also. Don't even entertain it. So that's why I don't entertain certain stuff, right? I do my thing and I just leave a lot of stuff alone because it don't have anything to do with what I'm doing. And that's not the type of brand that I'm building. There was a time to where a lot of what I perceived as foolishness, I would have got caught up in it and I'd have been going back and forth with people, right? And so that's what I want you to understand is that a lot of times we don't want to do the work on ourselves that are going to allow us to change our identity. We're so caught up in other people. Other people not going to be the reason why you're going to change. You got to be the reason why you change, right? But the narrative and the trend and the spaces for other people, right? Whole live streams talking about other folks, never talking about you, right? So you now 5 and 6 years in the stuff, and every day you show up on this person's live stream or you show up on their social media to talk about other people, but we never deal with you and what you got going on and when you're going to change your life. I talked about this for years. Rush Limbaugh made himself wealthy, right? Claiming he was a conservative and then spending his whole show talking about other people and never holding his audience accountable because he conned them into thinking that conservatism is worrying about Democrats. Not that you need to worry about yourself and what you got going on. He conned them. All these other conservative entertainers doing the exact same thing. They're running his format, right? They supposed to be the party of the space of self-responsibility, and they spend all their time talking about other people. They never spend their time talking about the people that are actually showing up to listen. What are you going to do to change things? Nothing. I'm just going to show up to listen tomorrow. That's how they build out their platforms. So a lot of people are engaged in this type of stuff, and nothing's going to change for them. So again, we start off at the top of the show. We're talking about you and what you're going to do to change. If you're not going to do nothing to change and everything is going to be somebody else, well, don't worry about it then. You ain't got to watch the video. Right? The question is, what are you going to do? Right? And I'm far from perfect. I'm 99% away from perfect. Right? But I'm constantly trying to figure out what can I do to continue to improve myself, to make myself more effective, so I can help more people. Because I'm very, very passionate about what I'm doing. Because again, this didn't start in 2020 on YouTube. I've been reaching out to people and trying to help them with what they got going on, right? Because I realize that we have a world full of people, right, who really are not as smart as they think they are. They don't know what they don't know. They need help, right? And everybody's looking to prey off them. They're not really looking to help them, right? And I know how to get money out of people doing the same thing everybody else is doing. I just didn't want to do that because to me, it was lame. To some people, it's not lame, right? But to me, it was lame. I'd rather figure out how can I make money by trying to help people and be a blessing to somebody instead of just trying to figure out how I'm going to take advantage of folks and tell them all kind of stuff that's halfway true. And that's how I'm going to get my money out of folks, right? So people are attracted to what they're attracted to. I've been very fortunate to be a big blessing to certain people and help them, right? And help improve their life. That's been a blessing not only to them, but also to me because I was very happy to do it because I wanted to change my life and get a new identity, right? And everybody else that don't want it, they're going to go find something else to do, right? And then because my identity has changed, I don't even get involved in certain stuff because it ain't worth my time. Because I realize that a lot of these people, this is all they know how to do, and they're not willing to look at themselves, right? They literally come on the internet to talk about other people. They never deal with themselves. That's a problem that they got. And until they decide to solve that problem, their life ain't going to change. But some people don't want to change their life, right? So that's all we're going to talk about. Anybody got any questions, comments? Anybody got any disagreements? You could come through. We're going to read these comments. We're going to get up and out of here. We're going to be here long because it ain't a lot to talk about. It's the work that you got to do. That's pinned in the chat. Any comments, questions, disagreements, yada, yada, yada. Let me see that there. Terrence, man, appreciate the $4.99. Jason C, man, appreciate the $20 super chat. I think we got one more. Okay, maybe I missed it. Okay. What's going on to Dr. Chaz? What's going on to CEO Jakes? Salt Lake City, Utah. What's up to Mr. Webb? What's up to Mr. Davis? Miss Blossom and Bloom, Amika, Miss Ty, if I pronounce your name properly. Toastmasters help with public speaking, confidence, and networking. People underestimate it. Yeah, definitely. But again, it's leaving the house and actually having to do work. I don't think people underestimate it. I just think people don't want to do the work because Toastmasters is leaving your house and doing the work on your own, right? And I think people are not attracted to that because it's not passive. It's actually active. So anybody that's not looking for an active solution, Toastmasters is not going to be for them. You know what I'm saying? So I just really think that's why people are not into it because it means leaving your house, going to a meeting, and just doing that work, right? Mr. Webb says, just joined Toastmasters a couple of weeks ago. My icebreaker speaks in 2 weeks. Great environment. Big up to you. You know what I'm saying? So I remember that icebreaker speak. Yeah. So big up to you, Mr. Webb. Yeah, I would just stick through. It's a great program. It really is. If you know, and you got different clubs kind of based on your city, but it really is a great organization. To really be involved in and to really get a good foundation on how to speak publicly. And like it really, really is, right? Because I do believe public speaking can be taught. I don't think everybody has to be gifted at it to be good at it. I think it can be taught. It's a set of skills. What's up to Dr. Chad says, working on public speaking more and trading. I'm speaking a topic, just shifted from medical to trading. Big up. You'll get it. You know what I'm saying? You know, and one thing I think that is as you get more opportunities to speak, you'll improve it because you know the material, you know, and that's one thing I learned in Toastmasters that if I know the material, then I just got to structure it. When I'm jumping on YouTube, it's not as structured as what I would do on Toastmasters because if I had to take the time to structure out everything I said on YouTube, you get one video a month. And I'm not talking about you, Dr. Chaz. I'm talking about in general. People will get one video a month. So when I'm doing YouTube, there is a basic structure of what I'm saying. But I have not really, what I would say, I have not planned out every word of what I'm getting ready to say, right? Where in Toastmasters, I literally will write everything down I'm going to say. I would edit it, yada, 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 rehearse it, knew exactly how long it was going to take, and then present it. Again, if I was going to do that on YouTube, you maybe get one video a month if you're lucky, right? And it may just be a pre-recorded video, probably wouldn't even be a live. So I think, one thing Toastmasters taught me that if you really know your material, it raises your comfort level because at least you know if all else fails, you know what you're going to say. GC, what's up with it? So working on getting to know myself, realize I did a lot in adult life to please my parents. I feel you. Erica says rage is easy for people. Yeah, it's an easy emotion to tap into. Rage farming is big. And it gives people an excuse not to do anything about what they got going on. It's nothing wrong with being upset. I get upset about stuff, but I just think people choose to stay there and they try to bring other people in. That's weird to me. Because if I'm mad about stuff, I normally don't try to make other people mad about it too. But yeah, rage farming is really, really big. It's the easy way to get, traction on the internet. Is figure out what people are upset about and bring them in because of that. So rage farming is real big. It's real big on Twitter. It's like massive on Twitter. So Cedric Webb says, how long did it take before you stopped being nervous speaking in front of people? Now I get super nervous. Great question. So it really wasn't me being nervous speaking in front of people. It was me being confident that I know my material, right? So if I know my material, so like we're talking about the icebreaker. When I did my icebreaker, it was about like an introduction to me, yada, yada, yada. What really was important to me is that everything that I wanted to say, I knew it. So what did I do? I do what I always do. I just rehearse it. And I rehearse it, and I rehearse it, and I rehearse it, right? So I rehearsed it and timed it to the point to where I knew everything I was going to say, right? So an example where Mr. Webb is that if I need to speak about like my first 3 options classes, right, I can pretty much do that off the top of my head because I know all the material. So it don't matter if you put me in front of 10,000 people. I'm just going to do the classes because I know the material. Because I've done that material so many times. So it was never an issue of me being nervous speaking in front of people because I took public speaking in college also. It was, do I know the material enough to where my confidence is so high in the material, it really doesn't matter what the people in the audience do as long as they don't like throw stuff at me, right? And so that's really what it came down to. So I would really encourage you to really learn your material cold, to where you can almost have it memorized, right? To where you know it so well, you almost got it memorized. So then you can just speak it and you're comfortable in speaking it to where you're not really concerned with anything else, right? So that's what has helped me. It's just preparation. So one thing I learned about public speaking is just, to me, it's all about preparation. If I'm prepared, I know my stuff. So when you went to the first event, even with everything going on, I knew my material. I was just worried about y'all was going to leave because everything else going on. But I knew my material because why? I had done the material so many times and I had practiced it. So the week leading up to the first event, I practiced literally. So you're talking about a whole day's worth of talking. I did like the first 3 hours, took a break, did the other 3 hours, took a break, did the other 3 hours. Because that's kind of how I had broken it down in those particular type of slots. So I knew what it felt like to do it. I knew about my fatigue level. I knew about all of that. So then when all the other stuff started coming in from the side, at least I knew my material. Because I can't control some guy coming down the street and knocking down the power line. I ain't got no control over that. I can't control the fact that projector's not working. I can't control the fact that the AV's not working. It was very frustrating to me, but at least I knew my material. So as long as the audience stayed there, I'm just going to do the material because that's all I can control. So that's what, to me, is really important for me personally, is really knowing my material code, right? And I think that is what has helped me, so I can always fall back to my material, even though these other things are going on. Because, I mean, I did stuff in college, man, it'll get weird, but at least I knew what I was talking about. Dr. Chaz says, I think that's holding me back in YouTube. I wait for it to be perfect when I need to do it more. Yes, so that's the thing about me, Dr. Chaz. You hear me talk all the time. I mispronounce words, yada, yada, yada. But that's a lot of times just how I talk. And so I just realized, like, because if you listen to me talk, especially on YouTube, Dr. Chaz, I say so a lot. And I hear it when I talk, right? I hear myself, I start sentences with so. That's really from me not really being prepared with the material, because I don't have time to prep it for 2 weeks before I do it. If I'm speaking live, I don't have that issue as much because I'm making sure that I'm prepared. So I'm a big fan of, if we know we're going to do a presentation, just know that information cold, right? Like, somebody should be able to wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, do your presentation. I should be able to do it. And if I know it like that, right, then I'm so comfortable with it, it's going to almost be conversational. Where you'll see me on YouTube sometimes and I'm trying to think of what word I want to say, yada, 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 because YouTube is a lot more impromptu. I have like an overall framework of what I want to say, but I don't really know word for word. When I'm going to do public speaking, I literally write every word out. And then I literally go through it and get my flow down and understand my timing, yada, yada, yada. So I know every word. I pretty much got to memorize. It's almost like a rapper or a singer where you memorize the songs. So you got singers that know songs from like 20 years ago, even older than that. You know, they know songs from 40 years ago because they know it word for word. You know, so I'm really confident that more repetition, you'll get so comfortable with it. You know, you'll just fall in line. And even then, it's not going to be perfect. Because like I said, I speak all the time and I mispronounce words. I literally can't think of what word I want to say to explain something. I just keep going. Dr. Chance, I teach my classes off knowledge, no PowerPoint and script needed. I feel you. Y'all can do like my first 3 options. And there's also things around options I can teach with no script because I just know that material that well, right? But then there's other things I would need a script to kind of reference. But I get what you're saying. So J-Way says, public speaking always been a natural skill for me. I was in theater, so he was in drama in high school. Didn't have any stage fright. Yeah, some people just got a talent for it. But J-Way, a lot of people, their biggest fear is speaking in front of people. Like when I was in college, we took public speaking. When it was time to speak, a lot of people literally had nervous breakdown. Like they did. They just was that fearful of putting themselves out in front of people and feeling like they're not going to be up to standard. And I get that. That kind of anxiety can impact people in different areas of life. So I may not feel like that in public speaking, but I may feel like that in another area of life. Anthony Bass says, I did a great job today. Yeah, I appreciate it. I was under a lot of stress. But my attitude is that unless they leave, I'm just going to do it. But Bass, I felt real bad when we had to leave the room and go into like the lounge. Because I was like, these people didn't pay to do this in a lounge. And then we didn't have the screen or nothing. So I just felt bad for the people that showed up. Because people came from out of state. Right? But I just had to keep going. You know what I'm saying? So it was a lot. But I was like, I'm just keep doing the material because I knew the material. So Bass, if I didn't know the material, I'd have really been in trouble. But I knew the material code. Right? I knew that material code. I had done it for too long, had done it for too many years. Because by the time I had that event, I probably had done that presentation for 3 or 4 years straight. Right? So it wasn't until we got into the second half of the day where the material was newer, the early stuff, I could wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning on no sleep and do that. It's too easy because I've done it too many times. Yeah, food was on point. Yeah. Yeah. Big up to the caterer. He wasn't cheap though, but I'm glad y'all got some enjoyment out of it. So I'm glad y'all enjoyed it because I wanted to feed people. But yeah, he wasn't cheap. And caterer's not cheap, bro. So Jay says, I remember reading how people respond, 70% of how you look, 20% of how you sound, 10% of what you're actually saying. Helps not to be nervous. I slip up on my words while on the mic. I feel you. Yeah, I agree with you that nonverbal communication is a majority of communication. I agree with that. So Cedric Webb says, has increasing your public speaking skills and strengthen your ability to network? I would say no, because networking to me is not really public speaking. Networking to me is more interpersonal, and it's not really me public speaking, right? So again, it's more impromptu conversation and kind of knowing what to talk about. And what I learned about networking with me personally is with some people I click really well. Like the first time I met Ray Gunn in person, everything was super cool. It was like I knew him from somewhere. With other people, it's more friction, right? It takes time for us to kind of feel each other out. So one thing I learned about networking with me is I still got to work on that because I'm not an extroverted person by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not a very charismatic person by any stretch of the imagination. So it takes a lot more effort for me to network with people that I don't know, that I've never met before, right? So it is also sometimes, like I say, hit and miss. So now with public speaking, if I know I need to speak, I can always prepare. And if I'm prepared, I have a high level of confidence because I know what I'm talking about, right? So that's the thing. When I did the second event talking about the LEAP contracts, I know about LEAPs. It's not an issue. So even if I was to lose my computer, I can just talk off the top of my head about LEAP contracts because I know the material. Here's the thing, Dr. Cedric. I really know this option stuff and I really know these markets in real life. So I don't even have to think about what I'm going to say. Is how can I take what I'm going to say and make it make sense to the audience where the audience can get it? But the material to me is easy because I read hours every day about this stuff and I've been doing it for years. So that's not an issue. Networking, sometimes I may feel like I don't know what we're going to talk about, right? Because I don't know this person, so I don't even know what they talk about, right? So that's the thing. And then I've been to networking meetings and some people just be in there acting weird, like for real. And that's something I had to learn how to deal with. Like I've been to networking events and sometimes people in there, and you see this more in the DMV, to where if they don't think you are of a certain, they don't really know you or know who you are, don't think you at a certain level, they'll act like they don't want to talk to you. And I'm real cool with that, right? Don't ever talk to me. But that's something you have to deal with because I've been to certain network events and because people don't know you or yada, 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 that kind of funny. And low key, I might make more money than everybody at that event. But I don't be tripping because it's easy for me to fall back into don't talk to nobody because that's what I come from. I'm from a neighborhood, man. We just don't really talk to people like that. That's just how we are. What's up to AM1? Appreciate it, Terrence. Yeah, but here's the thing though, Terrence, that come from what you're seeing on the screen. See, so that really wasn't my first event. I had done stuff before that, right? Did Toastmasters, went to Toastmasters events because, there's a rabbit hole in Toastmasters. You could go down to where like you can become like a pro at Toastmasters. They have like international events to hold 9 yards. So there's a deep rabbit hole of Toastmasters you go down. But I did Toastmasters almost like a year, right? And Atlanta's a big Toastmaster hub, like real big. So that's the thing. So I was used to speaking, and I also was used to things kind of going off kilter and me still having to do what I got to do. I used to work in healthcare, so I'm kind of used to things not necessarily going the way I wanted to go. And you just got to push through it. So that's how I felt about the event is I got to see my biggest concern was people leaving, right? But nobody left, which I was happy for. But I was like, man, people going to leave. They don't want to see him do this. Like, this is crazy, because the day didn't start off well, right? But it's just now I know that's how events go. You know what I'm saying? But the thing about me, Terrence, is that I try to just keep going when things don't go my way, if I can. And there was nobody at the event actively trying to sabotage it. It was just things happen, right? It wasn't like somebody was coming in trying to mess it up. It just stuff happened. Just stuff happens, right? So if nobody's trying to actively sabotage me, normally I'll just keep going. If they're trying to sabotage me, I'll be like, I don't even know if I want to keep doing this. Appreciate it, Miss Brandy Williams. So hit up Brandy Williams. She's one of the best accounting tax people in the metro, maybe even in the nation. Hit her up, man. She'll get you straight. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes it's hard, Bass, because let me explain something to you. We can't take making a house and put on a 5th grade level, right? So sometimes people have to understand is that they have to raise their level to get to where the information is at, because we can't take making a house and make it to where a 5th grader can understand it, to where they can actually go build a house. So some information is going to be at a higher level. And I think people have to really commit themselves to putting the learning in and putting that passion that they have in other areas towards learning to where they can get higher level information. Like when I was in college, like I had to really study to learn certain math. Like I had to study. There was no way there was no way to simplify like calculus, right? You just really no way to simplify it. Like there's different ways to teach it and present it, but the math is the math at the end of the day. So I agree with you that we have to figure out how to communicate in a way to where it's just not super technical or overcomplicated. But one of the things I learned about teaching and instruction is trying to create an environment where people can learn, but they also have to want to learn. And so something that you run into on the internet is people show up and they have no desire to learn. They want to do what they want to do. And then what they try to do is make everybody else get on that same wavelength. They're not here to learn. That's one thing I liked about doing live stuff. Like my first event, people not going to leave their city and fly to come in and they don't want to learn because it costs them too much money. Where the internet allows people that are not here to learn to do what they want to do because it don't cost them nothing because they already got internet service already through their phone. Cedric, so with networking, would you recommend casting a wide net of network only people in a specific industry or field? It's kind of based on my goals. So I'm much more selective now about what networking events I go to because I realize that a lot of events won't help me, right? So I kind of would depend on my goals. So what are my goals over the next 6 months to a year? And then how can I help those people in those networks, right? As opposed to what can I get out of them, right? So how can I help people in those networks based on my goals with the idea that down the line, they'll be able to help me. So that's why I don't go to a lot of general, like the city I live in, it's a million like general networking stuff. You're going to meet a lot of people trying to sell insurance. A lot of people in MLMs, right? They trying to build up a client list at these events. None of that stuff, I can't help them because I don't have people to feed into their business and they can't help me. So what I really learned is like kind of what are my goals and then where can I go to where I can help those people and they also can help me. Because again, I've done a lot of work on myself, Cedric, and I don't, for some reason I seen you in person, but I don't remember you at the event. But like I say, the first event was going so fast. I don't remember a lot of people that was there. But I'm really not a really outgoing person. I'm not, because still working on really changing my identity to where I am outgoing. So that's why I tell dudes a lot of times women are not, all women are not like stuck up or whatever. They just can be very introverted, right? Because I'm a type of person where I don't really talk to a lot of people, right? So it just takes a lot of effort sometimes for me to talk to a lot of people. And also it takes a lot of, I don't know what you want to call it. If I'm in a room with a whole lot of people, that's a lot to me. So there's only so much I can take before I got to leave and like recharge. Well, other people, I got a homegirl. She's a socialite. She looks to be in areas with a lot of people. That's just her personality. That's not my personality at all. So it takes a lot of emotional work for me to get to like talking to a lot of people, right? But at an event, because I'm focused on what I'm doing, I can focus on that and it's not as much work. But to give you a heads up, after that first event, I was so tired, it was ridiculous. Like I was literally like, I felt like I hadn't slept in like 3 days. So I just would be very selective, because one mistake I made initially was I would go to like a lot of networking events, but most of them couldn't help me. It was a lot of people in the metro trying to sell insurance, or there's some type of independent professional and they trying to build up their client list. They're really not there to help other people. You know, so I would cast a narrow net kind of based on what my goals are, but that's what I would do. But everybody different. Your city might be different. Jayway says you got your Series 6 in the finance industry, makes everything sound more complicated than what it is. Yeah, I agree with you there. In finance, they do that. I agree with you 100%. So big up for you for getting your Series 6. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Roscoe says it takes a lot of energy when you're introverted, especially people don't know personally. It does. So Erica says go to an event with 800 people in one conference, excited. Go to events that fit your personality. You go to golf charity event, but small talk might wear you out. And she's 100% correct. You know, go to events that fit your personality, you know. And then, but to me personally, because I know that I'm more introverted, I have to work on being more extroverted, right? Because I know that. So then it's just work. I can't just say, well, I'm going to hide behind being introverted. That's what a lot of people do on the internet. I got to say, okay, how can I put myself in situations that are going to challenge me and make me have to come out of my shell, right? Because that's the next stage of development. So I'll never be Beyonce, where I live for the camera. That'll never be me, right? But how can I challenge myself to where I have to come out of my shell? Because like I spoke at Erica's event. And again, because I've done so much speaking at Erica's event wasn't that big of a deal, even though I didn't prep as much as I normally prep. But again, when I spoke at Erica's event, I knew exactly what I was going to say, right? I knew exactly what I was going to say because I practiced it before I got in there. So her event, Erica's event that she had, the Classic Climb event out here in the Metro, was a good place for me to work on getting out of my shell, right? And talking to people that I normally would not talk to. Because again, like I say, where I'm from and the neighborhood I'm from and the structure I'm from, man, we don't talk to you if we don't know you. Like, it's just, that's not what we do. Because a lot of y'all is cops. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful of police, but y'all, a lot is the police or you got something to do with the police. So we just not going to talk to you, right? Because a lot of y'all, and excuse me for spitting, a lot of y'all is cops. And so that's just a thing. Y'all got something to do with police. So we just wouldn't talk to you. And that's how you avoid it. Or all of you got something to do with it. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory to police. I'm saying that that's what's going on out here. So the easiest way to get around it is just don't say nothing to nobody. But that don't help you when you start trying to move into different environments. It don't help you. So you gotta reinvent yourself and change your identity, right? So the identity of somebody to where I'm constantly worried about the person I'm talking to is a cop, or they got something to do with law enforcement, or they're a confidential informant, so I can't talk to them. That don't help me trying to do what I'm doing, right? But a lot of this stuff I see on the internet, these people are cops. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory to police, but the stuff they're doing is police stuff. Like it is. You're signaling to police what you're doing. That's why I can't get caught up in it. Because, it's a trap. GC says it's not stuff people talk about is super lame to me. It depends on what they're talking about. Like, so me, GC, I could talk about sports all day. Right? I could talk about sports all day. So one thing I enjoy having a conversation at my second event is I was talking to Raygon about Penix and whether or not Atlanta should have drafted Penix. And I'm not trying to say I was right, but I was right. It was a wise move for them to draft Penix because why? Penix, they start quarterback right now. I just went to the Benz not too long ago, seen the locker room. You know what I'm saying? So I was talking so I can talk sports with anybody. And one thing I like about talking sports in person is way more respectful than talking sports on the internet. Because people on the internet, they get too excited. But I can talk sports with anybody because I'm really into sports like that. So I can always talk sports. I don't talk music anymore because I'm really not into music like that. But I can talk sports with anybody. College, football, whatever. I got a perspective, always got a perspective on sports. Don't like to talk politics with people because I think most people cannot handle political conversations. They take stuff too personal. But I can talk sports with anybody. But it's outside of that is what we're going to talk about. But I can talk sports with anybody, GC. I can talk sports with anybody. Pros, college, kind of based on what market we in, high school. I could talk with anybody because I'm so much, I come out of playing a lot of sports. I was so much into sports. Like sports was everything to me for a very long time. So I got a real deep background in sports. So that's one thing I can talk about. Now, outside of that, I don't know what we're going to talk about. But then if you want to talk real estate, I could talk real estate. You want to talk the markets, I could talk the markets all day. You want to talk marketing, we can talk marketing all day till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But I like to have dialogue. And sometimes when you're talking to people, you learn that they don't want to have dialogue. They want to do all the talking. So you got to weigh it out. Right. But I agree with you there. But it depends on the person. Yeah, I agree with you. Right. So like when I get off this YouTube, I got to recharge. Right. It's a lot. And I just spoke to somebody before I got on here. So I've been doing a lot of talking today for me. Right. So I got to recharge. But that's everybody's different. I used to, the homeboy who lived, his mom used to live over there close to my grandma. She would go to this, y'all don't know Orlando, y'all don't know the Claudia Adams Center. and she would just sit in her car and just recharge, right? Because she had a house full of like kids. And I know another woman that got kids, and she told me like some days she would leave her house and just go sit in her car just to get out of the house. You know what I'm saying? Like some people, based on their personality, a lot of social activity, it's a strain on them. Other people, social activity charges them up. If they don't get social activity, they feel drained. Everybody's different. But I think that for people like myself, to where they're not really super social, the next stage of growth is being more social, because the world is built for extroverted people. The world's not built for introverted people, right? And introverted people try to figure out how to hide from the world, but that's not really what you need to do. It's really not. Sometimes you got to force yourself to get more out there. You just got to. And it's going to be uncomfortable, but you got to come out of your shell. Do I think networking events are more fruitful for people with tangible products? So I wouldn't go to a networking event trying to sell a product. I would go to a networking event trying to figure out what value I can add to the people at the event, right? So I would never go to a networking event where my goal is I'm trying to sell somebody something. My goal would be, what value can I add to the people that are there, right? And if I can't add no value, I don't need to go, right? So I would never go with the impression of that's one of the challenges that we have with these networking events in the metro. Everybody's trying to sell you stuff because they don't want to pay for leads. They don't have a pipeline yet because they may be new in business. So they get told by their higher ups, oh, just go to all these networking events. And they're in there trying to sell you on stuff, and it's very obvious that's what they're trying to do. So it makes a lot of these networking events weird. Also, for me, because I'm not looking to get traditionally employed, a lot of these other people at network events, they're looking to try to figure out what their next job going to be. And I'm not necessarily there for that. So you got to kind of pick and choose what events you go through, right? But there was a brother, this was years ago. He used to teach Bitcoin over there off of Cascade. That was a real good event way before Bitcoin even blew up. I wish I was listening to him. I would have bought a lot of Bitcoin back then. He used to teach it for free. He teach at Georgia Tech. Erica says, I know two different dudes on CIS for real. They always do. 100% Erica. 100%. And I know you know what time it is. A lot of these dudes is cops. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory to police, but a lot of these dudes are cops. And I know it. I can see by their behavior, right? So I just try to stay out of a lot of stuff because I know they trying to bait people. A lot of these dudes is cops. And ain't no wrong being police. We need police. But they're trying to literally entrap people. That's what they're trying to do. And I just don't have no time for that. I got too much stuff going on. Erica says, my friend does have 4 kids under 5 years old. Yeah, I know. Like, it's just so much going on in the house. They got to just leave and just get a break, you know, because a person can have a lot of children, but be introverted. And so dealing with their kids all day is a lot on them. You know what I'm saying? And so they got to just get a break sometimes, you know, and that's just how it is. So people have different personalities and they have different levels. And so I've raised my level of interaction I can have with people. But still, like I said, if I do certain amount, I got to fall back and recharge, you know, and then also a lot of other stuff added to it. Attention span, focus, all that goes into stuff. But yeah, sometimes I got to fall back and just recharge. You know, it can be a lot to me, you know, like it really can. How do I decide what's paid versus free curriculum in terms of courses? I don't understand the question. So Alonzo, if you could rephrase that question, I appreciate it. GC says, I've seen people in situations where they've talked themselves into some serious situations. I always got fear of saying too much. I feel you. Well, that's why I keep it on sports, you know? So if I meet somebody I don't know, especially if it's a man, in my mind, we should better talk sports, you know, because I know a little bit about every sport, even if I'm not a fan. Like I'm not a real big baseball fan, but I know a little bit about baseball, right? Not a real big soccer fan, but I know a little bit about soccer. Played it when I was a kid. So I know who the major, like I know Orlando and Atlanta got a rivalry. Atlanta got a real big soccer culture out here. It's going to get even bigger over time. So there's some serious soccer fans out here in Atlanta, right? These Mexicans, they serious about their soccer out here. They ain't playing. So I can talk sports to pretty much everybody because GC, I would prefer small talk with people. And when we leave, we're not mad at each other. That's why I don't try to really like to do politics. If I talk politics with somebody, I got to know that they have the sophistication to where we can disagree on politics and they're not going to get mad. Because a lot of people, when it comes to politics, it's like if you don't agree with them, they get mad at you. I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I try not to do politics with folks, because they literally, like a lot of people, the way America has shaped these folks, if you don't agree with them, whatever side they on, if you don't see it the way they see it, they mad. So I'd rather just talk sports. So when we leave, we still cool with each other as opposed to getting into politics. Religion sometimes that way too. Even though I don't care what you say about my religion, because I'm not going to change for you. But some people, you can't talk religion with them. They get mad. And it's just, I don't know. Everybody different. You know, everybody different. So that's pretty much going to be it. Appreciate everybody for coming through. Hope y'all stay blessed, man. Have a safe Memorial holiday. Don't eat too much. Don't get caught up in this traffic. Okay, Alonzo coming through with the question. I wonder how much the lag is on here. In terms of offering value, how do you determine how much is sufficient? That will ultimately lead to the sale and long-term relationship. You still don't understand the question. So Alonzo, do me a favor. Hit me up on the email. And that'll probably give you the opportunity to really flesh it out, because I want to make sure I really understand the question before I answer it. So hit me up on the email, man. That'll give you the opportunity to really flesh out what you got to say, because I think putting it into this particular chat is not allowing you to really express yourself properly. All right, man. So everybody stay up. Stay safe. Talk to you later.